All right, we are rolling. Counting us down. 3, 2. You're listening to Missing Out with Lex Michael and Tauri J. Let's start the show. Hey guys, welcome back to Missing Out. I'm Tauri J.
I am Lex Michael.
And if this is your first time listening, what we do here is we introduce each other to different media, whether it be movies, music, television, books, spoken word, experiences, things that have built us up as people. We share them with each other. We share it with you, the audience, in hopes that it builds you as it has done us. We are the retrospective that is introspective.
Very nice. See, I felt so good during that. Like, I felt like I was in such good hands that I checked out completely.
As you should.
For a second.
That's how it works, you know?
That's what I bring to the table.
I lull you into a false sense of security.
I was so trusting that everything was going to be okay.
Yeah, check your pockets. Your wallet's gone.
Oh, shit.
Yep. Looks like it's pizza on Lex tonight. Ha ha!
How? My wallet's gone.
You know where it is.
Ew.
You know exactly where it is.
Oh, that's gross.
I keep it warm between my butt cheeks.
That's wow. We just tripled down on it.
I did, yeah.
All right.
Lex,
we're gonna move the fuck on now.
So this week we're talking about the 2007 miniseries based off of the 2002 manga called Afro Samurai, the American version starring Samuel L. Jackson as the Afro Samurai, Ron Perlman as the gunman, and then a series of other prominent voice actors you've heard throughout your lives, like Phil Lamar and John...
Oh, him. I love his work.
Bender.
John DiMaggio.
John DiMaggio. And a bunch of people. But yeah, and so if I'm going to pitch this mini-series...
I just heard the sword sound that as you launched into that.
I mean, I like to imagine it. And this is a reference that you don't understand now, but you may get one day when I present Fate Zero to you. Where Gilgamesh is a character based on the old ancient Gilgamesh. He creates a wall of different portals, and each one of them has a sword, and all the swords fly at his enemies. So I imagine that whenever I do the pitch.
Got it.
The pitch, because I'm throwing these ideas and these swords at you. Anyways,
you're right. I don't get it.
No, not yet.
I have only a marginal understanding of the words that you're using.
Right. Well, you will. I imagine one day I'll be like, we're doing Fate Zero. And then you watch it and you'll be like, oh, that time we did Afro Samurai. I understand. Wakarimashita.
That's exactly what I'll say.
Yeah.
I'm not going to remember that.
You will.
I am not going to remember. I don't. What are we talking about?
We're talking about Afro Samurai. So I brought this to Lex Michael because it was something that I really enjoyed. It was for most people, I feel like this was their first R-rated anime. It's also I believe it is American made. It's made by a company called Gonzo Productions, and it was originally aired on Spike TV with a little bit less of a little less violence, a little less sex, a little less language, but I feel like this was a lot of people's first R-rated anime, and this was the first time I had seen an anime that specifically kind of caters to me, in that it is about a black, not caricaturistically drawn character with a full storyline and he has a full arc and people he interacts with, and it also has amazing art style. It is so fluid, and also I feel like Samuel L. Jackson was giving his all in this performance, because the main character of Afro doesn't talk much. He'll just say a couple words here and there. Very much like a Samurai Jack kind of character where he's very stoic. But then you also have Ninja, who is his companion, who is very loud and in your face and smack talking and things of that sort, which is also played by Samuel L. Jackson. And I don't think I've ever seen him do a character that is this like big, which I really enjoyed.
I mean, Sam Jackson does big pretty consistently.
Well, he does big, but it's usually like mad big, where he's
Angry big and not like excited
where he's
big.
just like yelling motherfucker at people.
Right.
But this time he got to be like almost whimsical.
He does this thing when he does voiceover work. It's a little bit more subtle, but it's similar in The Incredibles also, where he pitches himself up a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't recall seeing him play in that register when you actually see him on screen, but some of the voiceover stuff he does, he pitches himself up. And
right.
But like this to a far greater degree than what I've heard before, certainly.
Yeah. And so for people who are unfamiliar with Afro Samurai, the manga or the anime, it was created by Takashi Okazaki. Okazaki.
Love his work.
Takashi Okazaki. I'm bad with names, guys. I'm really bad. Takashi Okazaki.
It's pronounced It's a callback
Ew,
to
man.
yesterday's episode.
Hell
Missing
yeah.
Out Monday. Koiken and Dynamic. Searching for Bohemia. Check it out. Like, subscribe. Give us 5 stars.
But yeah, he originally started he really liked hip hop and started his career just like drawing the black figure. And as he started moving into more manga, he essentially self-produced this his I think it's like 4 volumes set of the Afro Samurai. And then later was approached to create the anime for it. And so then that became what we took in. I thought about making you read the manga, but I was like, nah, I'll just have you.
He hates books.
Yep.
He hates pictures that don't move.
You're right.
The illusion of movement is not enough.
Yeah, I keep flipping pages back and forth thinking it'll be like animation, but it's not.
This flip
it never
book is bullshit. What did you pay for this?
But I wanted you to experience the fluidity of the animation, and I don't think I've had you watch a more R-rated anime yet. I've had you watch psychedelic shows. I've had you watch like somewhat like gory anime, but I don't think I've had you watch like a full R-rated for mature audience version. And I thought that this was the best one that didn't involve rape. So
okay, good, better. Yeah, I appreciate that we
like,
chose to start in a rape-free zone.
Yeah, I mean it's a thing that happens, especially in like feudal era. Like as when we were talking about Samurai Champloo, and Fu got thrown into that brothel, and there was a very big implication of that kind of thing. So sometimes when you get to like the more individually produced stuff, or even some older stuff, they're like, yeah, this is just in this. And it's not necessary, and I don't like it. So I thought I'd start with something where you got some nice, sweet, hot, consensual sex.
I sure did.
Yeah. So I also felt like this would really appeal to your sensibilities in that I felt like it was very accessible, and also it had that sweet, sweet, gory violence that you love. That brings
that's my
laughter.
whole brand is love sweet, sweet, gory violence. No, I know what you mean though. Yes, we've established on this show and in our lives that extremities are a big thing, a big driver of my sense of humor. So yeah, that's why I love slasher movies. You know, like Chucky's Dat Boy. I just watched all the Chucky movies again. They're dope. But it's so ridiculously over the top, cartoony violence, so extreme, and for a lot of people it's like, why would I watch that? I know exactly why I would watch that. It's ridiculous and fun and funny. So yes, in that sense, you're right, it would definitely seem to be up my alley.
Yeah, bro, it's your jam. It's your jam. Speaking of music, the music was also created by the RZA, who is a giant anime fan. He also did Man with the Iron Fist, which was, as you might imagine, inspired by Japanese animation. Which I think it's also a manga. I don't remember. But yeah, so I was glad to see him on the project as well. He's dope, and the music was dope.
Indeed.
What did you think as first impressions?
Okay, so let me start by saying it has become very clear to me that I am never going to be an anime person.
Yeah, no, you're a human being. You're not animated.
No, but it's just like we've talked about it over and over, and like I've found ways into all of the different ones that you and I have talked about, but I always feel like I can't get closer to it than about a mile away.
Interesting.
I just feel like, for whatever reason, I don't know how to describe it. The barrier for entry feels so thick for me. And we've talked before about how it could 100% be in my approach to it. I might be locked into looking at it a certain way, and it's impeding my ability to connect with it in general.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I've come around to accepting I'm never really gonna be an anime person.
Interesting.
Having said that, yeah, I found this accessible as fuck, and I had a really good time with it. If there's more anime like this that isn't super rapey, this seems like maybe as close as I'm gonna get to being super into it.
Okay.
It's fun. The story is compelling. The characters are really interesting and unique. The performances, as you were talking about, I mean, Sam Jackson alone, the juxtaposition of those two characters and the two very different levels of performance, the fluidity, the action sequences, yes, the extreme shit like the gore. We get a super weird softcore anime porn scene in the middle of that thing. All that we're missing were tentacles. Dude, tentacles. What is it about?
Hold on.
Tentacles and erotica.
Sex scene. We can talk on that in a little bit, but
it's because it could touch all over and shit. It's got little suction cups.
This scene reminded me. I think we were talking about another movie. I want to say it was like Soul Food, where there was another sex scene, or it may have been no. It was, oh crap, what's the name of that movie that we watched about the four women? Set It Off. It was Set It Off. Had a sex scene that we were talking about how like it was juxtaposed with like Jada Pinkett's character having gross, sad sex with that pastor, and then having passionate sex with the guy that she was interested in, and how much butt you could see. We talked about that a lot, but I would say that this sex scene in Afro Samurai is just about on par with that sex scene from Set It Off. Same kind of music, same kind of angles. The only additional part is that you could see actual nipple boob.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Nipple boob.
Nipple bloob.
Bloob?
Nipple bloob.
That sounds like it involves tentacles.
Yeah. I mean, look, tentacles. There's a weird censorship in Japan where, like, even if you were to try to watch, like, penile vaginal sex, they, like, blur out the naughty parts. You know what I'm saying?
I'm trying to see the line from that to the tentacles.
But, like, you don't have to blur out the tentacles.
But don't you still have to blur out someone's parts?
Probably. I mean, I also feel like, the tentacles, I'm sure that there's an actual, like, historical reason, which I don't remember what it is, but it's there's a sense of like dominance in sex culture in like hentai and things of that sort, which is part of it, but also there's like it's a very homogenous society, and so like if you could equate that to the idea of an alien coming in and being dominant over your women, you can really like trace that back to societal fears and appeals. You know what I'm saying?
There's something disturbing about all of this.
There's a lot of things. It's like, it's a lot. There's a lot to it. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sweet, sweet samurai revenge flicks.
Yes.
Um,
So what is a layout, if you will, the general plot of this thing?
Yeah, I'm going to drop down the spoiler wall because I just want to make sure that if you haven't seen it, I mean, go refer to the last 5-10 minutes that we've been talking about, like what's great about it, the performances, the artwork, the storytelling, all that stuff. And if you haven't seen it, it's on Hulu. It's on the internet. Like, and by that I mean it's available. Like you can definitely find it.
And it's only 5 22-minute episodes, so by the time you're done with the entire thing, you've watched the equivalent of one feature.
Right, exactly. So go check it out, and then come back to this moment where we're about to talk spoilers. So I'm giving you a lot of room to head on out and come back. And in 3, 2, 1, spoilers start now. So, in this world, it's a more post-apocalyptic environment. You can tell because of the collection of ancient things and also modern technology like cell phones and like cyborgs and things of that sort. In this world, there's a legend of two headbands, the number one headband and the number two headband. Whoever has the number one headband can essentially, according to legend, become a god and can only be challenged by the person with the number two headband. And so the former owner of the number one headband was the father of Afro. And so Afro goes to this duel with his father, and the number two headband belonged to the gunslinger, who is voiced by Ron Perlman. And they have this duel where essentially his dad brings a sword to a gunfight and is beheaded somehow. They don't show you how he's beheaded, but he's murdered. Mm-hmm. And so it begins the revenge quest by Afro, the Samuel L. Jackson character, to not only find the number two headband after it is taken from him by bandits, but also to make his way to the summit where the number one headband person will be.
Also, too, as you say, the person with the number one headband can only be challenged by the person with number two, but the person with number two can be challenged essentially by anybody.
Yeah.
So the person with the number two headband has people trying to kill him constantly, essentially.
Right. And so it creates this crazy dynamic where everyone is constantly challenging. In the present, they're always challenging the samurai, and in the past, it's his journey to figure out if he wants to pursue the headband and his revenge, or if he wants to live in harmony with his found family. And so those two things eventually come to a head and meet each other head on, and then you get real tragedy by episode 5. Yes.
Yeah, I'm very much of the opinion that we do not have enough stories about headwear fixated violence. Not enough stories about people killing each other over hats, helmets, headbands, what have you.
Yeah.
Glad to see Afro Samurai leading the way.
Mm-hmm.
Really breaking. It came out in 2007, so really they got on it first. This is going to be the next thing.
Yeah.
Like after superhero movies, after that massive wave starts to die down, like it does with every massively popular genre, the next one, mark my words, is going to be hat violence.
I mean, we have a bit of hat violence, #MAGA. So that's a thing. What?
You're right.
What's wrong?
Oh, it's bad
Yeah,
now.
it's there.
Oh, it's bad now.
Man.
You made it bad. It was
just
good hat violence thing, and you made it a bad hat violence thing.
Would you say you would tip my hat to me? Tip
Your hat? That would be
tip my hat.
an invasion of your personal space.
But that's the violence. There's where the violence comes in.
I shove you.
Oh man. So yeah, and so we have this. So the first episode I feel is very like piloty. It gets you familiar with who the characters are and why they're doing what they're doing, and it also fills in information about the world. So we get this bar scene after like Afro is killed a bunch of people who challenged him. And one of my favorite parts about the initial opening is that like these guys are confronting Afro. This is after we get the flashback of his dad dying. And these guys are like, we're going to kill you. We're going to take that headband. Some people have paid us a bunch of money to take that headband. And then he like slaughters most of them. And the last guy, he's like, why you got to kill us, man? Why you got to do this? We're just doing a job. Why you got to kill us? Don't kill me. Come on. It's like, bro. You can't come up to someone and be like, I'm gonna fuck you up, and then they like beat you up, and you're like, yo, why you do that? No, it's not how it works.
Really did not anticipate their bluff being called. To be fair, there were a bunch of them, right? Like the odds of that one dude being that good at killing people were relatively minimal, I would assume.
Yeah.
You know, so they probably really did have no level of anticipation that such a thing could happen.
Yeah.
Let alone would. So I imagine that dude was, I'd probably be the same. I'd be like, well, there was clearly a non-zero chance of this happening, but we didn't know that. Can I leave?
Yeah.
If I had known, I wouldn't have fucked with you.
I mean,
I see now the error of my ways. I'm ready to go home and rethink my life.
If home is to your maker, because they're all dead now.
Because they're all
dead.
No mercy.
But after that, we get this really fun, like it very much had a Samurai Jack feel to it. When we get to the bar and there's all these people being like, yo, what are we here? This is the number 2 headbands around here. And they're all talking about the legend of the headband and why it's there. And one assassin is really interested in it. And then we get this scene where Samurai walks in. He asks for 1 lemonade. And then everyone tries to beat him up and he just fucks him up so good.
Sidebar, I've never seen Samurai Jack.
Oh, dude. Okay.
Yeah.
We got to watch that.
I know that's going to happen. And everybody who I know that's ever seen that show is like, oh, it's the best thing. It's so good. It's one of those things that is just so good. How good is it? So good. All right. That's not informative.
It's great because it, did you watch the Clone Wars series, right?
Yeah. I've watched
animated
a
one?
lot of it. I watched the CG one, and I saw the what is it, Tartakovsky one.
Yeah,
long time ago.
Right. So it's Samurai Jack is Tartakovsky. So it's a lot of in the same way that the Clone Wars was. It's not a lot of talking. It's a lot of action, and it's very much like visual storytelling. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the big appeal, is that you understand the plight of the main character. But you also just get immersed in the world that's being created. Sort of like in Afro Samurai, in that they establish this world that has these rules about these ancient headbands, but also as you're walking through it, like there's very much a feeling of a long-standing society that's been created, and people who live here who probably at once lived in a civilized society. Now it's become super lawless. Mm-hmm. So Samurai Jack is great. Afro Samurai is also great. And I feel like you can feel the overlap.
Okay.
Like a little bit.
Eventually I'll have a frame of reference for that.
Right. And I think it's because of not to say that I'm sure that people are getting their typey fingers ready, being like, Afro Samurai didn't take away from Samurai Jack. What I'm saying is that like there are very specific samurai tropes that people follow. Mm-hmm. And so you can feel the overlap, especially when you have a samurai with like Bushido sensibilities in a postmodern post-apocalyptic setting. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have a lot of the same tropes in that, like, they always go in and they order something, and then people give them guff, and then they like lay waste to them. You see it in everything.
Right.
Like,
you see it in westerns all the time also.
Right. And a lot of samurai content has western sensibilities. Mm-hmm. Because of the influence of westerns on Japanese cinema.
And it's really easy to just map the mythological idea of the lone gunslinger onto, say, a Ronin who's walking the earth.
Exactly. That's why you get things like Rurouni Kenshin, which is just that. Someone who was formerly an assassin who is now wandering, trying to do good.
Well, that's also how, in the other direction, you get Sergio Leone able to remake Yojimbo as a Western without having to do much of anything.
Right.
Though that undersells how great A Fistful of Dollars is. At some point I'm going to make you watch probably the whole Man with No Name trilogy.
Okay.
Which is Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is one of the greatest movies of all time. It's also pretty long. So that'll be like when you've got over 3 hours to burn in a day, you let me know and I'll make you watch it.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. Like, it's super easy to map it 1-to-1, and I think that that's what makes it really accessible. And so this specific story is very much a revenge quest where you have a guy who has to decide if he's going to maintain his humanity or he's going to just become a single-minded entity who is hell-bent on revenge. And I love the way that the story plays out because you start off knowing almost nothing about this character. You understand why he wants revenge, even though, like, and they essentially establish it from the very beginning that it's not necessarily the path he has to take. I didn't catch it the first time I saw it, but I was watching with subtitles this time, where when his dad is beheaded, his dad's head in the like last moments of its existence goes, "Don't avenge me." And I love that they added that in because it means that, like, it's not something that his dad ever wanted for his son, but it's something that he ultimately ended up doing anyways.
Yeah. Okay. I could no. I'm processing what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. And so, like, I like that as you learn more about the samurai, you can understand him, like, at any moment just kind of turning around and being like, I don't need to do this. And that's what Ninja is saying the whole time. He's like, don't go. You don't need to do this. Like, it's not who you are. You don't have to be this murder monster. Like, you can just live a peaceful life. And I think that, like, as you learn more about the history of the number 2 headband, it feels like everyone who's had it, or like a lot of people who have had it, have thought about just like trying to remove it from society.
Yeah. Because if they're out there, people are constantly going to be killing each other over it.
Right. Because especially at the end, you learn that there have been multiple headbands, but they're all like consolidated away, which essentially is what created this dynamic in the first place. Like, if they were all floating, there'd be like a hierarchy, but now with just the 2, it makes it a lot more complicated.
I want to address, since we're talking about Afro and what's driving him, his motivations, his journey, I want to try and put to words my experience tracking the different characters in this. So a part of the barrier to entry for me is, for a lot of anime, is that I'm not super jazzed about most of the characters. And then also, too, a lot of anime, to me, feels like, and I think it's just because of that barrier to entry, it feels like I'm supposed to be keeping track of a whole bunch of totally indistinct personalities. And almost all of them fall into one of 2 camps. When I think of anime characters, lead characters, I think either, or And
okay.
Honestly, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of either.
Okay.
So I really appreciate, first of all, that there's none of that in Afro Samurai. That was great for me. And the other thing was, it felt like there weren't too many core players to keep track of, but everybody was very distinct, and every character felt grounded and firmly established immediately, even when there was an air of mystery about the character. They feel very singular and very, very there.
They're fleshed out.
Right. Thank you. Fleshed out in a way that a lot of anime characters never feel. So I actually felt like I was able to. It felt more like, watching a movie where you can actually spend time with characters.
Yeah.
Versus for me feeling like I'm on the other side of like a foot thick granite wall.
Gotcha.
Metaphorically.
Right.
That's not how I watch things. That would be foolish.
I mean, I think that your description of the characters are very much how a lot of like weekly shonen jump stuff is, like very much like a lot, especially so if you put all of the like general male protagonists made for teen boys in a line, like they're a lot of the same. And it's because a lot of shonen has been influenced by Dragon Ball, and later Dragon Ball Z or whatever. And so you get a lot of similar traits to that original Goku character so they're usually pretty innocent. They usually have a singular goal in mind that they're trying to get. And they're usually very loud about it. And typically they have like one distinct quirk about them. So that it's like, oh man, this character really wants to become the Hokage, and they're always acting out, and they're loud and telling you this thing, and they love ramen. And you're like, cool. All right.
And I think maybe part of the problem for me is, and especially when I'm not super keyed into it to begin with, those distinct things are frequently not all that distinct.
Right.
And at a certain point, I feel lost because it's become so hard for me to track who's supposed to be doing what because it all starts to blend together.
Yeah.
Which did not happen in Afro Samurai, delightfully.
Yeah. I mean, I think because, the story was simple enough and grounded enough, even though there's all this like all these crazy things happening around Afro, like it's still a very grounded story. He has a goal in which he's trying to accomplish, and then there is a group that is trying to stop him. Mm-hmm. And they established the group very early on, and each of them, since they have very similar appearance, they make sure to voice them differently and have them be very distinct in the way that they interact with the world. Like you have your classic like old priest character, you have your cowardly one, you have your one who is super big and always ready to kill. You have one that just loves to listen to music.
Got the one that dresses like a teddy bear. The oldest of archetypes. I believe Joseph Campbell was the one who first brought to folks' attention that dressing like a teddy bear. That's the fundamental element of the hero's journey.
Right, of course. Classic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why Return of the Jedi ended with Ewoks, is because you had to get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
You really had to earn that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You just can't come out with the bear like straight at the beginning. Like you have to earn your way to it. Mm-hmm. It's a rite of passage, and it's like, it comes right before your all is lost moment. It's like crossing the threshold, learning, meeting your bad guy, person dressed as a bear, all is lost, and then you start reaching your Act 3 pieces. Yeah, and then you move into the climax. Return home with a new something or other. Those are the
post-credit scene featuring more bear dress up.
Right. Let's talk about Gino.
Yes.
So Gino was the guy dressed as the bear.
Right.
Well, technically he had a bear head, which was encasing his horribly scarred face.
Yeah, he's like he's Darth Vader post Mustafar.
Right.
It's a little Star Wars planet talk for you.
Nice. Are you some kind of nerd?
It's the lava place. That's where Hayden Christensen was like, I hate you.
Wow. Oh my gosh. It's like Hayden Christensen was in this room with me. Wow.
Hello. I'm Hayden Christensen.
Wow. How do you feel about sand?
I hate sand.
Is it coarse? Does it get everywhere?
At the end of the fucking movie, he's just so out of it on fire. He's just like, I hate sand. And Obi-Wan's like, you all right?
No, my knives are gone.
The Emperor's like, I gotta put a helmet on you to stop you yelling about sand.
It like filters out anything that he says. Anytime he mentions sand, it just goes
Right, like he's trying. He's like, help me and shit.
yeah.
I'm being censored.
Oh man. But yeah. I really liked Gino, for those who, if you haven't watched it but have decided to continue listening, Gino is one of the kids that Afro meets when he is taken in by this sword master who essentially is gathering all these orphans because, this is a post-apocalyptic world where people are orphans.
Some weird shit.
No.
It's too dark. We found the line, ladies and gentlemen. We found it. There it is.
Yeah.
I'm not touching it, but my feet they're close. they're close.
Yeah, keep your hands to yourself.
I'm close enough to read the text that says, please stay on this side of the line.
Uh-huh. And there's a guy like just on the other side being like, don't do it. Just don't. I don't want to have to deal with you. I don't want to have to.
Once you're in this life, you're in it for good. So essentially being a bit of a surrogate father to all of these orphans.
Right. And he basically was serving as the father that Afro had lost. He's also a swordsman. He's also like caring, it seems. But Afro is still hell-bent on finding the number 2 headband, going so far as to like keep accosting bandits in order to find information about it, which keeps getting him in trouble. And his friend Gino, played by Yuri Lowenthal, you might know him as Peter Parker in the newest Spider-Man game. You might also know him as Ben 10. You might also know him as Sasuke in Naruto.
Not for nothing. If he's the Spider-Man from the PS4 game, yes, he is maybe my favorite Spider-Man.
Oh, cool.
Outside of Miles in Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And like, look, I love me some Tom Holland too, but that game is awesome. That game gave me like everything that I wanted from that character. No, his Parker's awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's him. And so Gino is trying to keep Afro as part of the family. Like he's trying to excel in his swordsmanship, but he's also trying to convince Afro that like he has a new family. He doesn't need revenge because like, they love him. They just want to be loved back. They want Afro to be part of their team. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen.
It does not shake out that way.
Well, it's the master's fault.
That's a little bit of victim blaming. Tauri, I think.
Sort of. I think that the master should have, it feels like the master took the number 2 headband so that Afro wouldn't be pursuing it. Because you find out that it's in the area. And then by the time that Afro gets the information about it, the guys are like, oh, man, it's been taken and you'll never find it again. And so I feel like the master intended to end his revenge quest by having it and taking it to his grave, having it buried with his body and taking it out of commission. But like,
it's not a great plan.
No, not a great plan.
Not a great plan.
Because here's the thing. It was rumored around the neighborhood that maybe the master had it. Okay, fine. But the fact that when Afro asked about it, he was like, meet me by the tree, I'm going to fuck you up. I think ultimately was like the downfall, because he could have just been like, look, yes, I have it, and you're not going to get it. You got to kill me, and you ain't going to do it because you's a bitch. Or something more masterly, like, you can fight me, but like ultimately, you have to choose. You have to choose. Is it this family or your revenge? And ultimately, the choice is made for him because during their chat, a bunch of people are like, he's out and he has the headband on. Let's kill him. And all the kids get killed in addition to the, well, I guess Afro still kills the master, but by that point, the master was already dying and decided to let him have it anyway.
Yeah, it's his plan was fatally flawed in a number. Oh, that's dumb pun.
Yeah, I get it. I love it.
Damn it, I'm not proud.
Yeah.
It was very deeply, fundamentally flawed insofar as, so if he wants to retain it so that Afro can't have it, well, dude, you better literally be invincible. Otherwise, someone's just going to kill you and take it.
Right.
Alternatively, if you live a long, natural life, die peacefully, and request that it be buried with you, I mean, does this world have shovels? Did shovels pass into history like tears in the rain along with civilization? Because if there are shovels, that's a bad plan.
Right.
If anybody finds out, oh, this old master had the headband and he took it to his grave, all right, where's his grave? Give me a shovel.
Right. Just burn it,
right.
dude.
Why is it not being destroyed? I get why Afro wants it, because that's the only way he can take his vengeance.
Right.
Why would literally anybody? I mean, look, okay, I get why people would want it, so that they could go and try and topple the wearer with number one and be like, be a god and shit.
Right.
I get what would motivate that type of person. But if you're the type of person that has the perspective to go, oh, this thing is bad and it will just feed a cycle of destruction, why aren't you also clever enough to take the next logical step and go burn this?
Yeah. I would have liked, and this is not me criticizing I think the show is great as is. So like, I'm not being like, this is how I would have done it.
Yeah, and I'm also not sitting over here being like, because he didn't do that, he's dumb and the world is dumb and Afro Samurai is dumb and I hate it.
Right. Because, I mean, you have to realize that it's also a piece of history. So that's like almost the equivalent of like burning the Declaration of Independence or some shit like that.
Declarations of Independence. So much tinsel.
Yes. So I get it. But I just would have liked a scene where he like tried to burn it and it didn't happen.
Right. Like, give it, if according to legend, you can become a godlike being with these things, then yeah, I could make the leap from that to, well, these things can't be destroyed by mortal means.
Right.
But yeah, we don't get a moment like that, so it's just a bad plan on Homeboy's part.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to go outside with it on my head and
not for nothing, right? Like, why put it on your head?
Yeah.
Why then advertise that you have the motherfucker?
I mean, I don't know, man. It was symbolic. Maybe.
It's a great plan if you're a decoy of some kind.
Right.
But he wasn't.
No.
Not good at strategy.
So yeah, and so ultimately you see that everyone of his orphans trying to defend him gets murdered. And Gino gets thrown over a cliff, or he falls over a cliff by Will and declares that he's never gonna forgive Afro.
I like that as he's falling, he's like, I thought of you as a brother.
I mean, yeah, it's the ultimate like betrayal.
No, I totally get what motivated it, you know, and it's a totally acceptable line. I'm just marveling at the fact that he had the wherewithal to say it as he was, as far as he knew, plummeting towards his death. I feel like in the same situation, I wouldn't be able to do better than and dude actually has the focus and the burning rage, that sense of betrayal, that he can actually get that out in what are almost certainly his last moments.
Right. I'd like to imagine that there's a deleted scene where like you see him fall into the water, and then like it's his internal thoughts, his arms are like unusable and he's like bleeding out, and then he like closes his eyes slowly and goes, got him.
Sick burn. Credits.
Yep. That's my headcanon. Oh man. So I liked that we got to the point where that situation comes to a head where the last thing standing in the way of Afro getting to the gunslinger is, and ultimately the gunslinger isn't even really like an issue. the big piece, or the big climactic piece of this story, was Afro confronting his feelings. So you get this in episode 5, I believe, where that moment that Gino falls over the cliff, it's almost implied that in order for Afro to cope with what just happened, and in order for him to cope with what he has to do moving forward, he consolidates all of his feelings, all of his emotions into this other being. And so, like, everything that Ninja is saying is what you would imagine would be his internal monologue. These moments where he's like, oh man, this is scary, but him removing it from himself and having it be this other entity allows him to become the killing machine he needs to be. And I love that aspect. Like, I didn't even realize that Ninja was an imaginary being until he dies in the show. Like, it never occurred to me.
It occurred to me pretty early because I keyed into the fact that, okay, this dude is always around and he's somehow not dead yet.
Yeah.
So then I went, oh, and the way he's moving, the way he's constantly inhabiting a space just over Afro's shoulder and whatnot, I was like, oh, okay, he's there, but he's not there.
Right. Yeah. And it's so well done.
It's very well done.
Yeah. Because especially, like, on the second viewing, you see how it influences Afro. So there's that moment when Ninja's like, yo, you gotta fuck this girl or I'm gonna do it. And he goes, go ahead. And I feel like that is him giving into his emotions. And so, like, Ninja disappears because he becomes a part of Afro again.
It's his Tyler Durden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. Nice pull.
Is it?
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of an obvious one.
No. I don't know. I've never seen it.
Oh, you never seen Fight Club?
No.
I've
seen the end.
I'm actually would be curious to watch it again because I'm not sure how well its general ethos would have aged for me. But it's very well made.
Yeah.
And, like, it's a cool movie. It's just, I'd have to go back and look again to reassess my feelings on its general philosophy.
Yeah. I hear that the term snowflakes comes from that movie or book.
You are not a beautiful and unique snowflake. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what these edgelord folks attribute it to specifically, but that would track.
I believe it is, yeah.
Because they take Fight Club at face value, I guess, and they don't realize that it's sneering at people like that.
Yeah, a lot of people take it at face value and are just like, yeah, these are the things I want to live by. Because that's the fine line with satire. Sometimes you satire so good, people are like, this is real.
Right. I don't think that's a problem with satire so much as with people.
Yeah. Sometimes you satire so good, people are terrible.
Then again, it gets a little dicey because some people will put a manifesto into the world that's just nasty and will insist that it is satire. It's not.
Right. Satire is not like a get out of jail free card.
Right.
Like, it's because a lot of it is about intent and taking a concept and taking it to extreme to show its absurdity. Like, that's what it is. But, like, people don't. There's people, again, back to the idea of, like, nuance is, like, the idea of something being satire is nuanced, and it's not.
I feel like these folks who actually embrace the ethos of Fight Club as their driving philosophy are akin to somebody who would read A Modest Proposal and then decide, yeah, I'm going to eat babies. He's right. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And then did it.
Right. I mean, well, I hear that babies taste the best.
Tender meat.
Yeah.
That's why that dude was collecting orphans.
Right.
He's like, they just got to get a little bit older, like a little bit taller, and I can get the right cut of the leg meat, just a little bit longer, you know?
Yeah.
And in his final moments, he's like, shit, I never cooked one. Fuck.
Yeah, each time you go to a flashback, like it's one less kid. They're like, whatever happened to Sasuke? And you're like, I don't know, I hear he graduated.
He's locked in a dark room. He's chained to the ground so he can't move.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm not having fun anymore. Mr. Tibbs, Oh man, this is dumb. That was a very specific reference. So for anyone who didn't get that reference, it was a Slayer reference to I forget the name of the song. I want to say "Darkness in the Abyss," something like that. Where in the middle of the song, a child is like, "Hello, where am I?"
I would not have pegged you as a Slayer fan.
I love Slayer.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
You gotta hold my hand up Slayer Mountain, I guess.
Okay.
All right. I didn't know this about you.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. You contain multitudes.
I'm a layered gentleman. I'm all the layers. I'm like a cake onion parfait.
That sounds
What?
horrible.
Does it though?
Even the onion parfait by itself. So cake parfait sounds okay.
Okay.
Onion cake, less so. Onion parfait, far less so. And the combination just does not add up to something that seems palatable to me.
All right, open your mind, okay?
Open my what now?
Open your mouth. Eat this parfait.
That's not a parfait. That's dark.
Yeah.
It's a dark subject matter on this show.
Yeah.
That's why we're rated explicit, kids. You knew what you signed up for. This is really your fault if you think about it. Look what you made us do.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Now, it's like the last week where you're like, we're known as for victim blaming. So it's like, no, we are not. That is not what we do here. Oh man. But like, so we get to the last piece with the gunslinger, and I feel like it becomes a different movie or a different show.
How so?
Because before it was very much it was fairly grounded. Like this guy was trying to get to this dude, and he's fighting all these robots and androids and cyborgs. But yeah, it makes sense in the world. But you get to this place where you meet the gunslinger, and he's emaciated and old, and he for some reason regains some of his figure from like slurping up something on the ground, and he can control spikes, and he goes on this whole big tirade rant, whatever, about how you need all the headbands, and so like Afro's father hid that from him, and so he let the headband go and never got it back. And so now this is his time. It's his time to shine.
Right. The only way to be a true god is to dress like a mummy.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like I feel like it became this other movie that was more of like a supernatural psychedelic drama.
It felt like they got to the last episode and went, "Great work, guys, but is anyone else worried this isn't anime enough?" And they broke the glass and they hit the emergency anime button and made it all way more anime than it was before.
Yeah. Because I feel like I really, when I was first watching the show, look, I'm going to reorder my thoughts.
Okay.
I really liked the duel because it explained how his father was decapitated and that the gunslinger had an extra hand in his back.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like that that you get an explanation that like there were all these other headbands and like this is just what the world had come to, and this guy is just trying to remake the world, and so it seems like it's a legitimate promise from these headbands that you could essentially become a god. Like the area that he enters is very ethereal. Mm-hmm. So I like that they are able to pay off the demand of these headbands. I like it. I dig it. I get it. Mm-hmm. I think I wanted, the first time I saw it, I wanted the gunslinger to be dead. I wanted, like, even though he has the number one headband, I wanted him to just be a corpse sitting in that chair so that you could really get the fulfillment of this idea that revenge is ultimately a fruitless venture.
Right. And also even the pursuit of power for power's sake, right, is ultimately an empty venture.
Right.
I like that. Stop writing a better show.
I'm not. It's not better. It's just
Stop
different.
it, Tauri.
It's just what
You're gonna hurt their feelings.
It's just fulfilling the promise that was made in the themes.
Right.
And like again, I totally get why they ended it the way that they did, and that like they are specifically fulfilling this promise that like these headbands mean something. These headbands existed far and beyond the reasons why people struggle on it. Like you understand why people kill so much to get to that point. It's just that I think that like in the early 2000s, that sensibility that like revenge is the answer permeated because we were in a very fresh post 9/11 society where like we were hell bent on vengeance.
Yep, very much so. Turns out maybe wasn't the best tack.
Right. And so like I think that my modern sensibility is that like revenge isn't the answer, and I want the protagonist to also feel that. But I also understand why when it was made that is the solution that came about.
Right.
And also like as someone following a protagonist, like the protagonist got what he wanted. The protagonist was able to go through this journey and he fulfilled the thing that he wanted to do. Yes.
I can track all of that. I don't know that I have a little ribbon to put on top of it myself, because I feel like you said it all very succinctly. And yeah, I agree that I don't hold it against the show either, but for me personally, yes, I think I would have rather seen that message internalized. It's like the ending of Creed 2 was very similar, because much of the story is about like what are you fighting for, because there are more important things to fight for than your own anger.
Yeah.
And at the end, he beats Drago's son by being really angry.
Right.
And it seems a little bit like slightly confused messaging. So that's actually what you're talking about. It reminded me of that as well. Where like, I like Creed 2 a bunch.
Yeah.
But yes, I feel like that would have been more emotionally fulfilling for me. Just like I feel like, yeah, what you're describing would have been just a hair more emotionally fulfilling than what we got.
Right. I mean, but you know, Gino comes back after some time, and he has all the headbands, and you know, he gets to try to go for his revenge too. Good for him.
Good for that person.
Yeah, good for him. I hope one day his tears stop falling from his eyes.
I hope one day we all get our revenge.
Yeah.
You know totally. What they say, an eye for an eye means eventually everything will even out and be fine.
Yep. That's what it means. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Mostly just that I dug it. Like I said up top, I'm not an anime guy. I never really have been, and I have very severe doubts that I ever will be. But I found this super accessible. I dug it a whole bunch. I assume you're going to continue to put anime in front of me, which I am open to. But my request then would be, if there's more stuff in this vein that isn't super rapey,
yes,
that like this worked for me.
Yeah. I have some things that like may not be as well. I have things that aren't as like gory, but there's a series. I think the next anime that I'm going to show you is the first bits of one called Psychopaths. The premise being that we've basically developed to a society where we can predict someone's propensity for crime. Basically by using, so they have these guns that essentially if they point it at you, it can be like, you have a 30% chance of committing a crime.
So like they weaponized the precogs from Minority Report.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
And so it's a lot of philosophy and the idea of keeping yourself within a certain psychological spectrum in order to maintain your existence in society. It's very interesting, very cool, and I think you'll dig it. And so I'm specifically giving you anime that I think that you would enjoy.
Yeah. Well, you got it right this time.
Hell yeah.
No, I did. I dug it. And there's There's a movie, isn't there?
Yes. So the movie takes place after the events of the series. It's it's an hour and 41 minutes or so. So very short. It's called Afro Samurai Resurrection. I recommend checking it out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, based on how I responded to the series, would you recommend that I jump into that? But it sounds like, yeah, okay. All right.
Do it.
So it's not like a situation where the quality dips because they've changed format or some time has passed.
I mean, I haven't watched it since I originally watched it, and I loved the series and I loved the movie. So I'm going to assume that it's great. They're both great, and you're going to love it.
All right. Well, if I don't, I probably won't tell you.
I mean,
gonna be you're going to hear about it, but like...
Yeah, no, you can tell me. You could be like, wasn't a fan. And I'd be like, oh, that's too bad.
Well, odds are I would forget.
Okay.
Unless I react horribly
you texted me
to it.
immediately after.
Like something, I don't know what it is, man. Something about this offends the fuck out of me.
Yeah. Or tweet it. And just subtweet me.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, Tauri recommended this thing, but fuck him because I hate it.
I'm going to be even more passive aggressive than that. I'm going to be like, yo, some people think that they can just offer their opinions on what I might like. But if you're one of those, you suck and are bad and we're not okay. And then I tweet that shit out.
Right.
And everybody's like, it seems like he's not doing super well.
But if someone wanted to look out for this tweet, where can they reach you?
Oh, that was smooth.
Thank you.
You're not going to find that tweet because I don't have the energy for anything like that. But you can find mostly me retweeting this show, occasionally some other things, at the Lex Michael. I'm also on Instagram.
Awesome.
At the Lex Michael.
You can find me at Tauri J, TAURIJAYM on Instagram and Twitter, but you can find this podcast at Missing Outcast. That's MISSINGOUTCAST. That is on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find us on all the podcast platforms. If you have a moment, go on there and leave us a rating, a review. We read the 5 stars here on the show. If you just want to leave a rating and it's great, thank you. And take solace in knowing that you did a nice solid and you made us feel good.
And if you want to leave a rating that's bad, why don't you come over here and say it to our face?
Please don't beat me up.
Yeah, don't please.
I'm
You're
scared.
probably bigger than I am. I'm like that one dude in the bar who was like, I really didn't expect our bluff to be called this way. Please don't kill me.
They're just lining up outside your door being like, I heard you wanted to confrontate. Yeah, that's how it works. It's a confrontation. So you confrontate.
What?
Confrontate. Confrontation. I'm from France. Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. We have had a lot of fun talking about this. We want to hear what you thought about it, so feel free to hit us up on Twitter or Instagram, or hit up the Missing Out hotline, which is 978-MISS-OUT. The number works, I promise you. So hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, I think that's it. So this has been the retrospective that's introspective.
And now you have a new perspective.
Hell yeah. Bye. You might hate me, but it ain't no lie, baby. Bye, bye, bye.
Did you know a turkey puppet once ran for the presidency of Ireland? Did you know that meat once rained from the skies of Kentucky? Did you know that there was an emperor of the United States for a while? Then listen to the Wiki Ship Down podcast.
We live in an age when the sum total of humanity's knowledge can be found in your pocket on a smartphone at any given time. But when that knowledge is peer editable, like it is on Wikipedia, what does that say about mankind? So follow us down the digital rabbit hole as we drink, joke, and curse our way through the random button on Wikipedia and see where our journey through humanity's knowledge takes us.
While you're at it, follow us on all social media at Wiki Ship Down. I'm Ruth Ann.
I'm Ryan, and be sure to find us every Wednesday on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to podcasts.